Matt, you've obviously had a lot of success here. Why do you think you've been so successful here? What do you attribute that to?
Oh, honestly, this racetrack's very technical, and you know, if you asked me the question 15 years ago, and I would have said it's a scrappers racetrack, and you know, guys that just good at picking up the pieces after making a couple little mistakes and things like that, going to do very well around this racetrack. But honestly, the racetrack's very technical. There's no place to rest around here, so good physical conditioning plays a big part around this racetrack. So you know, it's you got to join everything together. Everything has to go together, and again, if you do make a little mistake, you have to pick it up quick and move on with it. So it's a you know, as far as layout goes, it's certainly one of my most favourite racetracks anywhere, as far as the layout over hills, you know, in gullies, around corners. Most corners are blind, you can't see where you're going, so you know, there's a little bit more on the line most of the time when you're coming through the turns. So
excellent. Who has a question? Right here. Don't be shy. Who has a question? Right here.
How much time throughout the year do you actually spend on the track?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, obviously anybody here that spends a little bit of time reading some of the magazines and listening to some of the stuff that's out there about how much the factories test, etc., etc. To give you an example, in the after last year's race season, we had 6 days on the bike between the end of September at Laguna Seca and beginning of March at Daytona. So in, you know, 5.5 months, we've done 6 days on the bike. We don't do a whole lot, you know. I mean, a lot of teams and a lot of stuff we've seen in the past, and the way a lot of people go about things, they just go to the racetrack just for the sake of going and doing laps around the racetrack. At Yoshimura Suzuki, we don't do that. We make sure we have a plan. We make sure we have something to test, and if we don't, there's no point being there, because by being there, the risk of crashing, the risk of a lot of other different things go up, meaning that you may not get to do the race. So we try and have a you know, a prepared approach to the way we test, and we don't do as much as what probably most people think. I mean, during the season, getting back to your original question, during the season, this is our heavy testing time right now. You know, we had Barber, we had Laguna, we have Infineon. Then we'll race at Barber and Fontana, and then I think we probably have another day at Laguna, and so this is our heavy testing section right now. Getting towards the middle of the year, things calm down quite a bit.
Excellent. Who else had a question? Here.
Hey, first of all, good job at Daytona. What is it that makes your team so dominant? And also, when do you come over to Yamaha?
Listen, we obviously up until 10 years ago or so, to me, Suzuki was another race team just like everybody else that approached things the same way that everybody else approaches things, and in the late 90s started turning things around by getting some key people on board, some key personnel, and me personally, I really tried to build the team around me and get the right people in for who I thought could do a good job, and et cetera, and we started changing the way the team operated, and really since the late 90s, the last 10 years have really been dominated by the Yoshimura Suzuki team. Obviously with my championships in the last couple of years, Ben had a couple of championships, and obviously off to a good start this year. So we do things and think about things differently to I think what most other people do, and the way they think about things. As I answered the other question, we have a very professional approach to what we do. We don't just go to the racetrack just for the sake of going to the racetrack, because to be quite honest, I'd prefer to be home with my kids anyway, rather than doing mean laps around a racetrack that don't mean anything. I mean, here today we have a set schedule. It's nice to be here to test, and if we finish at lunchtime tomorrow, then we'll be finished. We're not going to hang around here and finish at 5 o'clock just because everybody else does. We'll get through our stuff, we'll do what we have to do, and then there may be a couple other things pop up that see us a little bit into the afternoon or something tomorrow or whatever, but there's no point just doing lap after lap after lap. You're not going to find lap time just by doing lap after lap after lap. It doesn't work like that.
Steph, any other questions? Right there,
A lot of the conversation these days seems to be about the change in the series management from AMA to the Daytona Motorsports Group, and in particular about redefining the Superbike class. In part, they seem to be picking on you guys an awful lot for your success. What would you want to see how would you want to see the class changed going forward, and what do you think about the possibility of riding either more stock motorcycles or 600s?
Purely from a professional standpoint, and forgetting about being a racer at the moment, this is a big country with a big motorcycle market. Every manufacturer can afford to race top quality superbikes. Can the privateers afford to have top quality superbikes? No. That's why there are other classes for privateers. That's why a superbike is the premier class. In America, it's really the only country that caters to the privateers in the premier class. Do you want to see 50 guys going around the racetrack, 10 of them on good motorbikes, and the other guys 10 seconds off the pace, or would you prefer to see 20 guys going around the racetrack all within a decent pace, and the other classes, the support classes for everybody else? The problem we have in America is that the factory wins every single class in this country. The factory participate in every class with a factory paid motorcycle racer. So there's nowhere for the young guys or the privateers to go. So purely from a professional side of things, I think superbike racing should be continued with in this country. And I think all the other manufacturers should stop whining and step up and do what it takes to get out there and win races. 10 years ago, as I said, Suzuki was just like everybody else, and with some smart rider hiring and team hiring, etc., we've moved ahead of everybody else, and nobody else has wanted to catch up. That's not our problem. We just want to race. We're here to race. We're not here to wear the shirt. We have a job to do when we come here, and that's how we approach it. So from a racer's standpoint, I hope we go to 600s, because everybody seems to think they're going to be competitive on a 600. Brings me back to the traction control issue we had a couple of years ago, where apparently Suzuki were cheating and we had traction control, and then everybody got traction control, and the gap between Suzuki and everybody else got even further. So the thing is when you have a competent crew, they're going to figure out how to use the traction control better than everybody else too. Right, so that's just how it goes. So we figured out how to use the motorbike better. We figured out how to use the traction control better. So in turn, the lap time's going to be even further apart, not less. So again, from a rider's point of view, I hope we go to 600s. I truly hope, because I'll come back 15 pounds lighter. I'll still have the same crew. We'll still work as hard and let the results lay where they lay.
All right, I think we will let Matt head back and get ready for, unless you want to stay, you're welcome to.